Hello and welcome to Nithrania YouTube channel. You're watching another episode of the Game in a Nutshell series designed for explaining the board game rules. My name is Branislav Berec and in this video we're going to learn how to play Pax Illuminaten from ION Games. And before we start, let me say that all the components in this video are prototype components. So let's get started. To set the game up, shuffle these luminary cards and assemble the map based on the number of players in the game. You can find the exact layouts in the rulebook. This is how it looks for a 3-player game. Then place the remaining luminary cards nearby and draw the 5 cards face up to form the court. Place this Chamberlain token next to the leftmost card in the court. Then again, based on the number of players in the game, create the general supply of these favor tokens. You will have 6, 8 or 10 tokens of each type in a 2, 3 and a 4-player game. These are 4 bonus action tokens. Have them somewhere near the favor tokens and then shuffle the deck of faction cards. And again, based on the number of players in the game, draw 3, 4 or 5 cards face up and place them in this display. This is called a faction row. You can place the remaining cards back to the box. Then create the event deck. Separate these event cards by their type. These are edict events, these are standard events. Shuffle each deck separately. And then draw 3 random edict cards and 3 random standard cards. Shuffle them together and create the small pile of cards. And then do it one more time and put this second stack on top of the first stack. You can return the remaining event cards back to the box. Then each player takes one Areopagus placard, but keep the placard in its place because it's part of the map setup. Take all the influence tokens of the corresponding type and draw 4 luminary cards. Keep the luminary cards in your hand hidden from other players. Then shuffle these contact cards, randomly draw 1 for each player and place it like this under the Areopagus placard. Then, based on the favor symbols on the contact card, take your starting favor, take 1 favor token of each type, matching the favor symbols on your contact card. Finally, the player with the lowest number on the contact card becomes the starting player. Then shuffle the plot cards and reveal 2 of them face up. Place them somewhere next to the map. These are public objectives for all players. Each player will also have 1 private plot card, so draw 1 card from the deck and add it to your hand. Pax Illuminaten takes place at the end of the 18th century during the Enlightenment era, and players assume roles of the top-ranking disciples of the Order of the Illuminati. The cards in the game represent various personalities from the Freemasons order or from Rosicrucians, and players will try to increase their influence, create various lodges, and grow their power. The game is played in a series of rounds, and each round players take turns, starting with the first player and then continuing in a clockwise direction until the game ends. Player's turn has 3 phases. The first phase is the event phase, during which players deal with these event cards. In the first round of the game, this phase is skipped because players don't have any of these event cards. Later in the game, if you have some of these cards, you can play these cards in front of you during this phase. If they are in front of you, they will be discarded. Edict event cards remain in play for several rounds. I will describe this event phase at the end of the video. Then, during the action phase, you can play up to 2 main actions. You have them listed on your Areopagus placard. I will explain all these actions in more detail later in the video, but in a nutshell, you will reveal these face-down cards. You will try to place your influence on the cards, remove opponent's influence from the cards. To do that, you will need favor, so one of those actions is to gain favor. You will also have a chance to remove some of the cards and place new cards in their place. And in general, you will try to achieve the objectives from the public plot cards and also from your own plot card. In addition to the two main actions, you can also play any number of so-called scheme actions. Those are special effects from the cards in your hand. And once per turn, if you meet the objective on any of the plot cards, you may claim one plot card. The last phase is the check phase. This is the phase where players check the victory conditions, and this is the phase where players will have a chance to acquire these event cards. After that, it's the next player's turn in a clockwise direction, who goes through the same three phases and so on until the game ends. The game can end in two different ways. Either one of the players has one influence token on two different plot cards, that's an immediate victory, or when 5 of these edict event cards are in the discard pile, so they're completely depleted, then at the end of the current round, the faction scoring will take place, where players score victory points from the largest lodge of each color. Lodges are groups of cards of the same color, and you score 1 point for each influence token. Again, I will explain this faction scoring at the end of the video. The player's turn starts with the event phase, but since you have no event cards in your hand at the start of the game, let me skip the event phase and jump right into the action phase. During the action phase, you can perform up to 2 of these main actions, any number of scheme actions, and you can claim 1 plot card. You can do this in any order you want, and when you take the main actions, you can take the same action twice, or you can take 2 different actions, and now I will explain all those 6 actions in detail. And let's start with the scout action. To perform the scout action, choose a card where you have at least one of your influence tokens, and then choose one of the adjacent face down cards. 2 cards on the map are adjacent if they share the side. The card is also considered to be adjacent to itself, and these 2 cards are also adjacent to this placard. The card with your influence is called the active card. The chosen card, which is face down, is your target card. Now, pay 1 influence of the type which is shown on the active card. Here we have purple and blue influence symbols. Those 6 colors are related to factions. This is a clergy faction, nobility, artists, these are magistrates, professions, and scholars. For the sake of explanation, for the simplicity, let me just call them by their color. So here we have a purple symbol and the blue symbol on the active card, which means I would have to pay either a blue or purple favor token. Return the favor token to the supply, and remember the supply of these tokens is limited. And then you can take the target card and add it to your hand. Don't reveal it to the other players. After that, place any card from your hand into the open space. It can be any card from your hand, even the one you have just picked up. Anytime you pay the favor tokens, if you don't have a favor token of the required color, you can always take 3 favor tokens of any other single color and treat it as 1 token of any other different color. The number of cards in your hand is limited to 4 luminary cards. Those are these cards. You can also have any number of event cards. You will have 1 plot card. These don't count to the hand limit. That limit of 4 cards only applies to these luminary cards. The next action is the influence action. With this action, you will place your influence tokens on new cards. Similar to scouting, choose a card with your influence token and then choose any adjacent card. And now you can place your influence token on the open locations on that card. Open locations are these spaces. Some cards only have 1 location, this one has 2, this one has 3 locations. In order to place your influence token on the location, you have to pay the favor tokens indicated in the location. Here it's yellow and purple token, so these are returned back to the general supply. And after that you can place your influence token on that card. Influence tokens are always placed from top to the bottom. With one influence action, you can place 1, 2 or 3 influence tokens on one card, provided there are open locations available. Influence tokens of more than one player can be on the same card, except for the cards with this symbol. These are so-called crown cards. If any player has an influence token on the crown card, no other player can place influence tokens there. With the Extort action, you can extract the favor from the cards where you have at least one influence token. The favor value you can extract from the card is this small symbol. It's not these icons in this black banner, it's this small one. Here it's a small symbol with the purple and the orange color. Here we have yellow and purple symbol. So when you take this Extort action, choose a card where you have at least one influence token and extract the favor value from that card. Here, as I said, it's either purple or orange, so take one of the tokens and place it in your personal pool. If you extract the favor from this card, you take yellow and purple token. However, if you extract a favor from the card with another player's influence token, you have to give one of those favor tokens to that player for each of their influence tokens. In this example, either the yellow or purple favor token must be given to the red player. Then this number in the top left hand corner of the card is the rank of the card. Here we have the rank 1, rank 2, this is rank 3. These are aces, ace card, and these are crowns. When you extort influence from the card and there is any adjacent card or cards with the same rank and you have influence on that card, you may also extract favor from that card or those cards as well. So after extracting the favor from this card, since this is the same rank and you have the influence, you can also extract one favor from here. It can be either blue or purple. Since you have your influence symbol on this placard, you may also target that placard and extract favor from there, so you would take the white, yellow and blue token in this case. One last note, each card can generate favor only once per turn. So if you take the extort action twice during the same turn, you may not extort the same card twice. The favor pool is limited, and if there are not enough favor tokens of a specific type in the favor pool, you can take that favor from any other player of your choice. And if your opponents don't have that favor, then you don't gain that favor. If there are any favor tokens on this Edict event card, you may never take these tokens from that card. Then with the Organize action, you can move your influence tokens from one card to another. First of all, choose one of the factions. You must choose the faction where you have at least one influence on the card with that specific faction. Factions are in this black banner, so here we have yellow and purple factions, scholars and nobility. So let's say we choose the yellow faction. Pay one favor token of that faction, and then you can perform up to 3 moves. You can move the same token multiple times, or you can move multiple tokens, and there's only one rule. You have to move your influence token from the card with the selected faction to any adjacent card if that card has any open location. So, for example, I can take this influence token, it's on the yellow faction card, and move it to open location on adjacent card. You don't have to pay that influence on that location. So this was the first move. Then with the second move, I can take this influence token, again it's on the card with a selected faction, the yellow faction, and move it to an open location on the adjacent card. Then with the third move, I can take the same token, because it's on the card with a selected faction, and move it to open location on adjacent card, for example here. If instead of this luminary card, there was this one, this influence token can be moved because it is on the card with a selected faction, the yellow faction. I can move it to this open location, but now I cannot move it any further because it is not on the card with the yellow faction. Then with the Expel action, you can remove the card from the map and replace it with the card from your hand. Similar to scouting, choose a card where you have at least one influence token as your acting card, and then any adjacent card as the target card. The target card cannot contain any influence tokens of your rivals, it can only contain your own influence tokens. To expel the card, you have to pay the favor of the acting card, and it's one favor per influence token on the target card. So here we have one influence token, which means I have to pay one orange favor. If there were two influence tokens, the cost would be two orange favors, and if there was no influence, the cost would be still one favor token. That's the minimum cost. But let's say there is one influence token. Take the card, place the influence nearby, remove the card from the map and put it into the discard pile, and then place any card from your hand into the open slot, and then place your influence back on that card. With the Oust action, you can challenge your opponent in a bid to remove their influence. Again, similar to other actions, choose one of the cards with your influence tokens, which is going to be the active card, and any adjacent card with the rival's influence, that's going to be the target card. For each influence token of your rival on the target card, pay one favor token of the faction of the active card. So here, for example, I can pay one purple favor token. With one Oust action, you can target as many influence tokens of your opponent as you want. For each one, you have to pay one favor token of the active card. In the next step, determine the initial strength of both players. The initial strength is the number of influence tokens adjacent to the targeted influence, including the targeted card. So here, white player has 1, 2, 3 influence tokens, the red player has 1, 2, 3, 4. If there's any player with higher strength, in our example the red player, that player has advantage, the other player has disadvantage. By the way, if the placard would be adjacent to the targeted card, you would also count this influence symbol. Then in the next step, both players simultaneously choose and reveal one luminary card from their hand, and now several situations may happen. If both players reveal the card with a number, here it's 3, on the card of the white player we have number 5, you simply add the number to the initial strength. So the white player would have 1, 2, 3 plus 5, that's 8. The red player would have 1, 2, 3, 4 plus 3, that's 7. The player with the highest strength is the winner. In case of a tie, the defender wins. If the side with a disadvantage reveals the card with this sword symbol, that side automatically wins the fight. Regardless of the total strength of the other side, the side with the sword symbol wins immediately. If the player with the advantage plays the card with the sword symbol, it counts as 0. It must be played by the side that has the disadvantage. On the other hand, if the side which has the advantage reveals the card with this symbol with hammers, that's the crown card, that side automatically wins the fight regardless of the strength of the other player. Again, if the crown card is played by the player with the disadvantage, it counts as 0. If both players play the cards with these ultimate symbols, they cancel each other out and are discarded. In this situation, the active player can either continue with the challenge, which means both sides will reveal another card from their hand and resolve those cards, or the active player calls off the challenge and the defender wins. One last note, both players must play a card from their hand. If they don't have any card in the hand, it counts as 0. Then, if the defender wins, nothing happens and it's the end of the action. If the attacker wins, the defender takes all the targeted influence, and for each influence token, the defending player can choose any favor token from the pool as a compensation. Then the winner takes the bonus action cube and places that cube on the targeted card. That cube represents a bonus action which can only be taken this turn. It doesn't have to be taken immediately, but it has to be taken this turn. And it can only be used for influence action, where you can place influence on this card, or for the expel action, meaning you can expel that card, or organize action, meaning you can move your influence tokens to that card. In that case, you can choose a favor token of any faction. At the end of the turn, take the cube and return it back to the pool. In addition to those two main actions, you may also play any number of scheme actions. A scheme actions is nothing else than playing a card from your hand for its ability. The first card you play starts the sequence. Any other card you play during the same turn, it doesn't have to be played immediately. Remember, you can take the main actions and scheme actions in any order you want. But if you play another card for the scheme action, at least one of the factions from that card must match at least one of the factions from the previous card. So here we have orange factions. Later during the same turn, we could, for example, play this card because it shares the green faction with the previous card. We could continue with the yellow card and so on. Ace cards are special. They can be played following from any previous card in the scheme sequence, and they can be followed by any luminary card with any factions. That's indicated by these rainbow colors on the card. On the other hand, you can play the crown card following any previous card. However, the crown card ends your sequence. That's indicated by having no color on the right side of the card. There are three types of effects on these cards. These are immediate actions. You have to perform them immediately, or you can ignore them if you want to, but you cannot save them for later. This type of ability is the permanent effect which lasts until end of the current turn only, and it cannot be ignored. And these are special actions. Again, you have to take them immediately or ignore them. You may not save that action for later. Once per turn, instead of using the ability on the card in the scheme, you can gather the favor from the card. So here, yellow and blue favor. To indicate that you take the favor, rotate the card sideways and ignore the ability on the card. Then you can follow the sequence with another card following the standard rules, but this time you must use the ability on the card. Once per turn, the active player may claim one faction card either from this faction row or from another player, providing that that player controls the largest lodge of that faction. Now, what is a lodge? Lodge is a contiguous sequence of at least 3 luminary cards on the map that have the same faction, the same color. In this example, we have yellow and orange, yellow and white. So this is a yellow lodge. There is another yellow lodge over here having 3 cards. One card can belong to more than one lodge. For example, this one is also part of the purple lodge. We have purple, 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 and purple. So this one belongs to the yellow lodge and to the purple lodge as well. Here we have a blue lodge having 1, 2, 3, 4 blue cards, and note that the lodges are formed regardless whether there is an influence on those cards or not. In order to control a card, you have to have more influence on that card than any other player. If players are tied, then no player controls that card. In order to control a lodge, you have to have at least 3 influence tokens in total on any of the luminary cards in that lodge, and more influence than any other player in that lodge. In this example, white player has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tokens, 5 influence in this yellow lodge. Red player only 1, so the white player controls that lodge. Similarly, the red player has 1, 2, 3, 4 influence tokens in this blue lodge, so the red player controls that blue lodge. However, this purple lodge has 3 influence tokens of the white player and also 3 influence tokens of the red player, so no player controls the purple lodge. Now, in order to take the faction card, you have to control the largest lodge of that color. Here we have two yellow lodges. Both of them have 3 cards, so they have the same size. In that case, treat both of those lodges as one. If, for example, this lodge had 4 cards, it would be larger than this one. In that case, white player controls the largest lodge. So if there is a tie, treat both lodges as one big lodge. And again, the player with the most influence controls that lodge. White player has 5 tokens, blue player has 4 tokens, so white player controls the largest yellow lodge. So the white player can claim the yellow faction card. You can claim it either from the faction row or from another player, and place the card face up in front of you. The faction card has 2 different effects. The first one is a once per turn ability, which you can use on your turn, even during the turn when you acquired the card. When you use this once per turn ability, rotate the card by 90 degrees to indicate that it has been used this turn. And the second is a passive permanent effect. And finally, once per turn, you may claim 1 plot card if you meet the conditions on that plot card. You can either claim the public card or your personal card, and you can only claim 1 card per turn even if you meet the conditions of more than 1 card. When you meet the conditions on a public card, simply place your token on that public card. And if you meet the conditions on your own personal plot card, first place that card in front of you and then place one of your tokens on that card. Public plot cards can be claimed by any number of players. Personal plot cards can only be claimed by the player owning those cards. Furthermore, you may not use the exact same lodge to meet the conditions on 2 different plot cards, and at the same time you may not use the full set of cards from one plot card to meet the conditions on another plot card. So for example, here you need at least 3 cards in this center column. You may not use those exact cards to meet the condition on another plot card. You can have some partial overlap. For example, you can use 3 cards from here to meet the objective on this card, and at the same time only use one of those 3 cards, this ace, with 2 other aces here and here to meet the objective on another plot card. After the action phase, proceed to the check phase. Check phase has 3 steps, and in the first one do the plot check. All players check their claims on the plot cards. First, if any player lost their claim because they no longer meet the condition on a specific plot card, take the influence token of that player and place it next to the card. Don't return it back to the general supply of that player, keep it next to the card. Because anytime later in the game, if that player meets the condition of that plot card again, it is called regaining the claim, and it doesn't count as claiming the card, so during the same turn, you can claim a new plot card and regain the claim on another one. Now, at this moment only, if any player claimed 2 plot cards, that player immediately wins the game. If not, proceed to the event check. In this step, check if any crown or ace card were revealed during this turn. Those ace or crown cards count as revealed during the turn only if they were played face up to the map, or face up to the scheme action, or if they were used to resolve any oust action by any player. If that was the case, the active player reveals 2 event cards, chooses one of the cards and returns the other back to the top of the event deck. If the draw deck is empty, do not reshuffle the discard pile. The active player simply doesn't draw any events. And by the way, it doesn't matter how many ace or crown cards were revealed during the turn, you only draw 2 event cards. Now, if the active player chooses to keep the Edict event card, that card goes immediately into effect. Place it face up in front of the active player and then take all the favor tokens of that faction from all players and place all those favor tokens back to the favor pool. Then take 6 of those favor tokens from the favor pool and place them on this Edict event card. These favor tokens are sort of out of game until they are returned back to the favor pool. I'll talk about that in a minute. If you decide to keep the special event card, put it into your hand. Then in the next step, the redraw step, discard all the cards from your scheme action and put them to the discard pile. Then all other players, all non-active players, refill their hands up to their hand limit of luminary cards by drawing the cards from the draw deck, and then the current active player draws back to their hand limit by drawing the cards either from the top of the deck or from the court. When you draw from the court, you may take maximum 2 cards, and when you do take 2 cards, one of them must be the card with this Chamberlain token. In addition, you also have to pay 1 favor of any type from your personal pool back to the general pool. If you only take 1 card from the court, you can take any card and you don't pay any favor. Then refresh the court. If there is any card next to that Chamberlain token, discard that card. Then move the Chamberlain to the next card on the right. If it is at the end, move it back to the first position. And then refill the cards from the draw deck, starting from the left and continuing to the right. The court is always refreshed at the end of the player's turn, even if you don't draw any cards from it. Note that unlike in other games, you don't slide the cards to the right. If you have to draw the card from the draw pile and it's empty, reshuffle the discard pile and create a new draw pile. Then refresh your faction cards, and that's the end of the check phase. Now let's come back to the event phase. Event phase is the first phase of the active player's turn, and if the active player has the Edict event card in front of them, take 1 favor token from that card and put it to the active player's pool, and then take another one and place it to the general favor pool. Now, if at this moment the Edict event card has no remaining favor tokens on it, discard that Edict event card to the discard pile, and if this is the 5th Edict event card discarded, it triggers the end of the game. The end of the game doesn't happen immediately, finish the current round, and at the end of the turn of the last player, the game will be over. Then, if the current active player has any special event card in front of them, discard that special event card to the discard pile, and then, if the active player has any other special event cards in their hand, they may choose and play 1 of those cards. So, as I already explained, if any player claims 2 plot cards, that player wins the game. Otherwise, if the 5th Edict card is discarded, finish the current round, and then at the end of the round the game will be over. In that case, perform the faction scoring. Determine the largest lodge for each faction and score the victory points for that lodge. Remember, to form a lodge, there must be a contiguous group of at least 3 adjacent cards of the same color. So, in this example, in the current situation, there is no white lodge, because there is only 1 white card here, and we also don't have a green lodge, because there are only 2 green cards. The same applies to the blue lodge. There are only 2 blue cards here and 2 over here, so again, no blue lodge in the game. If there are 2 lodges of the same size, like 2 yellow lodges here, treat them as 1 big lodge. Now, for each influence token in that lodge, the player scores 1 victory point. So, in this purple lodge, white player scores 3 victory points, and the red player scores 3 victory points as well. Then we have this first yellow lodge and the second one over here. Since they are the same size, they count as 1. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points for the white player, 1 point for the red player, and 1, 2, 3, 4 for the blue player. Note that 1 card can be part of 2 different lodges. Finally, here we have an orange lodge with 4 points for the white player and 2 points for the red. Sum up all these victory points and the player with the most points is the winner. So that's how you play Pax Illuminaten. If you have any questions or comments, I'll do my best to answer as many as I can. If you like the series, please subscribe. You can support the channel on the Patreon page. You've been watching Game in a Nutshell. My name is Branislav Berec and hope to see you next time.